So today I'm going to share with you 10 of the most common Amish surnames. You may have noticed if you visited an Amish community that names repeat themselves. I'm going to give you 10 of these most common names, a little background on each one, and at the end I'll give you 8 uncommon Amish last names as well, so stick around for that. So number 1, Miller. This is the most common of all Amish last names. There's an Amish writer, Joseph Stoll, who wrote that the German spelling of this name was Müller, and because there were many Millers in Europe, the name was very common. So many people having this name don't have a really common ancestor, or at least that they know of. Miller is most common among the Amish in the Midwest, but you may also see a few Millers in Lancaster County, for example. And one common theme here is that Lancaster County itself has some specific names that you tend not to see among, let's say, the Midwest Amish and in larger communities in Ohio and Indiana, for example. So number 2, Stoltzfus. So this will be the most common Pennsylvania Amish surname, most common Lancaster County Amish surname. A man named Nicholas Stoltzfus, who lived in the 1700s, is believed to be the common ancestor of all those that have the name among the Amish and the Mennonites today. Nicholas Stoltzfus is a figure in Amish history who the Amish are quite aware of. There's a Nicholas Stoltzfus homestead in southeastern Pennsylvania that is very important to Amish there. You'll occasionally see this name spelled as Stoltzfus with 2 O's instead of the U at the end. You'll see Stoltzfus everywhere in Lancaster County if you go visit. Stoltzfus on the name of businesses, Stoltzfus on mailboxes. It's like Smith or Jones for the Amish in that area. Number 3, Yoder. This is actually one of the most common names that people think of when they think of the Amish. It's very kind of specific to the Amish. This was a Swiss origin name, which apparently comes from the name Theodore. The Amish that you see with this name today, I'll spell it with a Y, Y-O-D-E-R, but there are some historical alternatives like Yoder with an I, Yoder with a J, and a number of other forms. One example of an Amishman with this name was a fellow named Strong Jacob Yoder, who also lived in the 1700s, who was well known for great physical feats. He has many descendants among the Amish today. Number 4, Beiler. Beiler has a couple forms. It's spelled in the B-E-I-L-E-R form in Pennsylvania, while it's more commonly spelled with a Y in Midwestern communities like Holmes County, Ohio. Jacob Beiler, who was the ancestor of most of the Amish Beilers, came to America on the ship the Charming Polly way back in 1737. Number 5, Schwartz. So Schwartz is one you're not going to see in a lot of communities, but you will see a ton of Schwartzes in 1 or 2 communities in particular. Schwartz is a Swiss Amish surname, and nearly half of the Amish in the Adams County, Indiana community, and this is the 5th largest Amish community with over 10,000 Amish, nearly half of the Amish there have this surname. You'll also see this name in Allen County, Indiana, which is another Swiss Amish settlement, but it's not common outside of Swiss communities. Number 6, Troyer. There was an early Anabaptist by the name of Hans Trier with an E, T-R-E-Y-E-R, or Dreyer, D-R-E-I-E-R. And he was one of the first Anabaptists who were executed. The Anabaptists, the predecessors of the Amish, were persecuted for their faith in Europe. Perhaps the most famous Troyer among the Amish ever was a man named John Troyer, who was from the Kokomo, Indiana community. It's a very old but very small community in north central Indiana. John Troyer had possibly the largest family ever among the Amish. He actually had 31 children. 29 of those were his own by 2 wives. So he had his first family with his first wife. She passed away, remarried. Then he had a second wife who also had 2 stepchildren, giving him a total of 31 children. Number 7, Bontrager. This is spelled in a number of forms, sometimes with an E, sometimes with an extra R in there. This is most commonly seen in northern Indiana, so you'll see a lot of Bontragers like in Napanee, Indiana. This is a Swiss origin name. Number 8, King. This is one of the most common Lancaster County names after Stoltzfus. You had a number of people with the name Koenig or König in Europe. Joseph Stoll, who I mentioned at the beginning, wrote that between 1732 and 1806, 38 people with the name of Koenig came to Philadelphia, but we don't know how many of these were Amish or Mennonite. It's possible one of those was the early ancestor or ancestors of the Amish we see today in Lancaster County. Number 9, Raber. This is another name that's common among Swiss Amish, but it's also seen in some non-Swiss communities as well. Raber. You also see Raber as well. Number 10, Fisher. So most Lancaster County Amish can trace their descent back to a man named Christian Fisher, who very likely arrived in 1749 aboard a ship called the Phoenix, along with a number of other Amish passengers. What are some other common Amish names that I left off this list? Here's a few other examples for you. Hirschberger, Sleighball, Hostetler, Zook, Mast, Lap, Smucker, Schrock, Gingrich, and Weaver. And there are others. Let me know in the comments some that I missed here. So what about the least common Amish names? Now, there's some interesting examples of names that you just don't see very commonly among the Amish. And these are maybe, in some cases, they are people that join the Amish. That's often an example. You may have just, if you see a name that's totally looks like not Amish in a community, it's possible that's someone that joined the Amish. Now, it's not very common that people join the Amish, but some do. I have some friends that have joined the Amish successfully and remained Amish. Sometimes people join the Amish and then they leave because it's actually pretty common that happens. So, but you do have some that join the Amish and stay within the Amish. So that may be where you get some of those rare names. Or some of these you may just see like in a very specific community. Like there's some names like in Canadian Amish communities that are very specific to those places that you don't really see outside of those areas. I can think of one Indiana community that has several quite rare names that you don't really see. So here are 8 uncommon Amish names. A lot of these don't sound very Amish. In other words, they don't sound German or Germanic. Some do. For example, Lee. There are Amish Lees in Indiana, for example. Bowel, Gasho or Gasco. I'm not sure how to pronounce that exactly even. I've never met a Gasho or a Gasco, but that's a name that you'll find in some Amish communities. Neuenschwander, Yancey, Ropp, Brandenburger, and Albrecht. I'll throw a couple bonus ones on here. I told you 8, but there's also Amish with the last name of Jones or Delagrange. That's one in those are actually both in Indiana communities. So that makes it an even 10 of non-common or uncommon Amish names. What about Amish first names? I've done a couple of videos on common Amish men's and women's first names, which you'll find linked here. So if you'd like to learn more about Amish first names, check out those videos. I think you'll like them. Again, did I leave out any common Amish names that you're familiar with? Put those in the comments for us. I'd love to see them. If you liked the video, subscribe, like, and I'll see you next time.